Hello, and welcome to episode 45 of the Great Canadian Hockey Podcast. I haven't really said this in a while, but I like that number, 45. We haven't really been talking about liking the number since, I don't know, maybe the 20s, but 45 feels like a number to be proud of. We're almost at the 52 mark, which, I mean, we've been doing this for more than a year, but once we hit 52 an episode per week for a year, that's pretty nifty. But enough of my rambling. I'm here with my co-host, Aiden Sarah, my wonderful co-host who has been carrying the weight of this pod while I've been out in the Great White North. How are we doing, fella?
You saying that I've been carrying the pod since you've been up north completely discounts the fact that I've been carrying the pod since before you went up north. But I'll
Okay, true. I mean, but you carry the pod behind the scenes.
yeah. Well, and huge shout out to last week's guest, Charlie Black. We got another guest this week. James and I will have an interview in a little bit here. Terik Parascak of the Prince George Cougars will join us a little bit closer to the middle of this episode. But yeah, James and I are, we're finding ways to get this podcast off, and some with the help of some really cool either guest co-hosts or guests to interview. It's something we're still going along on, buddy. This is 45. Charlie said last episode that 44 was the Todd Bertuzzi, and I said 45 was going to be the Jordan Schrader episode. Um, because he wore
The
that with.
Jordan Schrader episode. Interesting.
But yeah, James and I are back for this one. Obviously, as we said, we have Terik coming up, and that's the centerpiece of this episode. But we just wanted to chat about, a few other NHL things beforehand, and I guess we can get right into it. Wanted to talk about some young NHLers who are shaking that bust mantra, James. And I'll give it to you. I've got four names. Is there anybody that I don't have on here that you think deserves a shout, or do you want to pick one of these names and start?
No, I don't think there's anyone you missed, but I really want to start at Uri Slafkovsky. I mean, he had 3 points in his game the other night, and he is looking dominant out there. I had seen people before online describing him as a lost giraffe on skates. And it's cruel, it's tough. Like he's a talented hockey player who's having a hard time finding his way. And maybe he was thrown into the fire a little bit too early. But I am beyond proud and stoked to see that this dynamic power forward Montreal has picked first overall is finally pushing it. The points aren't incredibly impressive on a full season scale. He's got 27 points in 53 games, but when you look at over his past 10 games, I believe he's only got 2 or 3 games without a point and a couple multi-point showings there. And that's where you start to see he's getting the consistency. He's getting the I'm catching fire. I'm on a streak. I can truly do this. I can dominate at this level. And that's what's important for a guy drafted that high with that pedigree. You want to see that from him.
Yeah, for Slaykovsky, 11 points in his last 10 games. And I think for me, what's most encouraging is, like the intangibles that he came with in his draft year, which was that, that really good release, the good shot, and then the power attribute to his game, his straight line skating ability and how strong he was on the puck. But the other two things that have grown a lot, number one, it's the way he reads the play. Like especially on that Montreal Canadiens power play, the way he's moving the puck around the offensive zone is very well done. Like I saw a goal, I believe it was against Detroit a couple weeks ago now, where it was just, it was a veteran NHL play. Cole Caulfield had tried to drive the puck towards the front of the net. The puck squirted loose, and Slaykovsky made a one-touch pass cross ice to Nick Suzuki, and Suzuki buried it. And it's a play where, a Slaykovsky with when he's not playing with that amount of confidence in his rookie year is just trying to wire that back into the traffic in the front of the net. Instead, sorry, it was against the Anaheim Ducks. It wasn't against Detroit because it was Lucas Dostal in net. But instead, the puck comes to him. He doesn't even stop it. Quick one-touch pass cross ice for Suzuki, and Nick Suzuki's actually number two for me because that top line of the Montreal Canadiens, Juraj Slaykovsky, Nick Suzuki, and Cole Caulfield have seemingly built up this chemistry that, at the end of the day for the Montreal Canadiens, that's the end game. That line being number one is that's the end game of this rebuild, and it's really taken shape. And I think that's great for Marty St. Louis. It's great for the Canadiens, and it's great for Slaykovsky.
I think the one thing you left out is it's great for the fans. Like they can look at we got this guy and he's actually going to be great. And you got to imagine like it's a pretty tough fan base. Some of them were probably pretty worried. They're notably hard on young players sometimes.
Next guy is probably the best of the ones we're going to talk about in terms of how his season's going, and it's Quentin Byfield of the Los Angeles Kings. Man, I had a lot of faith in this guy coming out of junior. Obviously, a lot of people did. He was a second overall pick in a stacked 2020 NHL entry draft. And, like it looked like he was so NHL ready because he was physically dominating his opposition by a lot with the Sudbury Wolves in the Ontario Hockey League. And it just didn't work for him right off the hop. And he's been moved to the wing from center, which has really helped him as well. But he's got, as of recording, 16 goals and 38 points in 48 games. That is an excellent mark to be scoring on. That's an 82 game pace of 65 points. And for the Los Angeles Kings, they've had such a tumultuous season and so many ups and downs. But a 21-year-old Byfield finally finding his way as a bona fide top six forward is huge for them. That's massive.
Definitely, man, I agree. Like they've had some struggles as of late, highlighted by I think a 7-0 loss to Buffalo the other night. And Quentin Byfield really finding his stride is that's something they need. That's something they need moving forward, and not just for now, but for the future. Like you look back or you look forward like 5, 6 years down the line, and Quentin Byfield being one of, if not the best player on the team, is within their plans. Like that's everything going according to plan. That's what they want to see. That's what the fans want to see. That's what the veterans on this team want to see. They want to see him ready to carry the torch. You really think Anze Kopitar and Drew Doughty want to see this team fall apart after they retire? No. Yes, that's down the line a bit, but like they want the Kings to still be rocking it. They want those years of rebuild to be worth it. So I'm a fan of his game. I want to see it keep developing. I'd like to see a little bit more bite from him. Like he has the size to be an absolute menace around the net, and playmaking is more his style. He's got great hands, solid shot on him, but I think I want to see him get dirtier around the net. Like maybe do you remember, I mean, I'm showing my Avalanche fan bias, but do you remember when Matt Duchene would get traded somewhere? One of the biggest things was he would like work between behind the net and the half wall on the power play.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I want to see his Quentin Byfield's office be between there and the front of the net.
Yeah, that's very fair. And yeah, like you said, he can be so physically dominant down low, and even just the attention that he garner with that frame around that area would open up so many other options for his line mates. And we talked about number two in the 2020 draft. That was Quinton Byfield. Let's go to number one in the 2020 draft. That's Alexi Lafreniere of the New York Rangers. I know you and I both were massive, massive Lafreniere fans in junior. I was expecting nothing but massive things from this kid. And his first few seasons with the Rangers have been full of adversity, but he did get a little bit better every year. And he's at the point now, as of recording, 53 games, 31 points, 14 of those points goals, on pace for over 20 goals, just shy of 50 points. And for the New York Rangers, James, this is a team obviously in a win now mode, but a team that has had some trouble developing their own drafted prospects, right? Like they've got Lafreniere, they've got Keandre Miller, but other than that, Capo Caco hasn't worked out the way he was supposed to. The Vitaly Kravtsov pick does not look good in hindsight. The Elias Anderson pick, likewise. Braden Schneider kind of took a little bit of a step back this year, but on a very competitive team, you can kind of see why. Obviously, they have a lot of players that they're, using and deploying in situations that Schneider's just not getting. But for New York, for Alexi Lafreniere to grow into that bona fide top six forward would be huge. He's got another year left at a $2.3 million cap hit. So for him to finish this year strong and have a very strong year next year in his contract year, that'd be huge for him, be huge for the Rangers. And he looks very confident on the ice. Like his stats don't tell the whole story. When he's out there and when he's carrying the puck, he looks like the Alexi Lafreniere that we fell in love with with Team Canada, the World Juniors, or with Rimouski in the Quebec Major Junior League. Like he looks determined to make something happen anytime he's in offensive transition. And he was an excellent playmaking left winger in junior, and like it really looks like he's starting to emulate that at the pro level. And for the Rangers, that's huge, and for Lafreniere, that's really good to see.
I mean, you covered it all pretty good there. The couple things I just want to add is he looks like he's having more fun out there.
Yeah, I agree.
You never see those ones where he just looks like, oh no, like not another shift like this. Or another one where he's going back to the bench thinking, how do I get this going again? And I mean, I don't know what's going on in his head, but that's just like what it seems like from the broadcast. And I saw him live. I saw the Rangers playing the Canucks in his rookie year, and I remember thinking, I don't know about this. Something's a little bit off. And there was just something to be desired. And like I have to say, he's my favorite player on this list. Like I am still a massive fan of him. You and I had talked at length about how I want his World Junior jersey just because of that picture of him with the gold medal holding up that flag behind him. Like that's iconic to me. Like I love that. But yeah, I mean, with him, I really do have faith in his slow track development. Like I think a couple years down the line, he's a 70-point player.
That's bold, but that was the least I expected of him coming out of junior, and especially right now, like he's on a line with Artemi Panarin and Vincent Trocheck right now. So who better to really prop his game up than Panarin? Like Artemi Panarin's an excellent playmaker and an excellent transitional forward, and really exactly what Alexis Lafreniere needs. And you got the finisher in Trocheck down the middle. Like that line could really do him wonders. Will stay in the top 10 of 2020 for the fourth and final player we're going to talk about in this shaking the bus tagline category. I had huge expectations as well out of the 2020 draft. For me, Marco Rossi was pretty high on my list. Like I definitely had him higher on my mock draft than he actually ended up going. He ended up going ninth to the Minnesota Wild in his rookie year with the Ottawa 67s in the OHL, 120 points in 56 games. Then the guy missed his entire D+1 season because he not only obviously the COVID, the COVID related shutdowns of different leagues affected everything, but Rossi got COVID in that year and he was unable to play at all. Even in the leagues that were available, he ended up finishing with one game played in Switzerland for Zurich. And then comes the next season, 2 games with the Minnesota Wild, solid year in Iowa, a lot of expectations that he was going to be a Calder candidate the next year, ends up with 1 assist in 19 games in 22-23 before finishing the year with the Iowa Wild. And he was almost point per game in the A. And, at some point it seemed like this kid had such a, tumultuous time in his career after his draft. And, the question marks were creeping in. Is this guy going to be what he looked like he was, a surefire top six centerman coming out of the Ontario Hockey League? And for Minnesota this year, 14 goals and 29 points in 52 games. He has an 82 game pace of just over 45 points. And really, for me, James, Minnesota, it's not an easy place to score. That's just kind of a fact. And for Rossi to be able to do what he's done has been pretty impressive. Like he's their second highest scoring centerman behind Joel Eriksson Ek and pretty significantly ahead of Frederick Gaudreau. He's been a top six center all season for them. And uh, I'm nothing but happy for this kid because he had a really tough season the year after his draft, and right now this Minnesota Wild team is you can see the core start to take shape. Kaprizov and Eriksson Ek are only 26, 27, Boldy 22, Faber 21, Rossi 21, and he's cementing himself as a very important piece of that core moving forward as they kind of transition into a new era.
Yeah, I'm totally on the same page with you, man. I think first and foremost, just after all the health concerns he faced early on, you just want it to work out. He's a supremely talented player, Marco Rossi, and I mean, you just really, really want him to be having fun and being great at the sport at the professional level. That's all you want to see. Let everything else follow that. And second, Minnesota and their cap concerns would love for him to be an impact player night in, night out. If that works out, awesome. But I think with him, take the time and let it come.
Next on the list, Sean Couturier has been named the 20th captain in the history of the Philadelphia Flyers organization. Couturier had some nightmarish injury problems the last couple seasons, but he's returned and he's been, determined to get back to his best. And he's definitely helped this Philadelphia Flyers team go on this unlikely run towards a Stanley Cup playoff spot. And, this is nothing but an amazing character guy. And it's really, really good for him to get the C on his jersey. He deserves it. This is something I know you definitely wanted to talk about. So I'll let you take it away.
Honestly, if I could sum up one word for this one, it's earned. This guy has earned it. And this is a guy who's an absolute warrior. Like, if there was an NHL Comeback Player of the Year award, I'm giving it to Sean Couturier. He came in guns blazing, ready to put his heart on the line for Torres. And yes, this Flyers team has exceeded expectations by a mile. And it's not something that would have happened without him, without his leadership, without his defensive ability, without the skill he shows on the ice. He is a flyer through and through, and I couldn't be more proud of the guy. I mean, some people thought maybe Scott Lawton, but it seems I don't know, he might end up getting moved with the premium for centers that we're seeing that netted Montreal yet another first round pick with Sean Monahan. Um, I think Scott Lawton could end up getting moved. I think he may have been in consideration for the C, but Couturier earned, man. Happy for him. Love to see it.
Alexander Ovechkin soldiers on after a lot of criticism to his play in the last little while. As of the time of recording, he's got 6 goals in his last 6 games, and he's getting closer. It looked like he was going to do it, and then it looked like, okay, well, if he keeps playing like this, he's not going to catch Gretzky. How close is he now, James?
58 goals away, man. 58 goals away from tying Wayne Gretzky. And he is, I believe, 91 games played less than Gretzky right now as well. So, I mean, he's gonna end up trickling his way there, I think. I think it's gonna be like this year, next year, and then partway through the year after next, he's gonna get it. It's gonna happen. I said for a long time that's gonna happen. And to be honest, when he started struggling this year, I wasn't saying anything about it. I wasn't talking about it. I never wanted to start saying he's not going to catch him. I didn't want to put that energy out there at all. I was not on board for that. So I just waited. I bided my time, and now he's got 6 goals in the last 6 games, and we're right back on track, baby. Let's go. All-time greatest goal scorer. Love to see it.
So from a legend of the current and obviously somebody who's had an amazing NHL career to one whose NHL career has yet to start, but looks exceedingly likely that it is not too far away. Terik Parascak is a draft eligible right winger playing for the Prince George Cougars. As of right now, he's ranked anywhere from the 15 to 20 range to the 40 to 45 range in the NHL draft. He's a WHL rookie who lit the league by storm with an amazing start to the season. James and I have talked about him on this podcast already before, and he's joining us now. So we'll throw away to a inner segment song here, and then after the music cuts out, you'll hear Terik Parascak with James and I. As promised, Terik Parascak is on the podcast with us. Terik, Prince George so far this season has done nothing but treat you well, and you've rocketed up these draft rankings. But first and foremost, I got to thank you for joining us because me and James all week have been super fired up about this, and it's awesome to get you on. So thanks so much for giving us your time.
Yeah, of course. Happy to be here.
So I guess we'll start off for you. Prince George Cougars this year obviously last season was a super successful one with the U18 prep program at Edge School. You guys won the CSSHL championship, and you were obviously a huge part of that. You AP'd 4 games in PG. They drafted you in the fourth round 2 years prior to that. So when they picked you, like how realistic did you think it was that the Prince George Cougars were in your future? Was this something that, kind of as you were playing your last year at Edge, started to come together and you started to realize like, yeah, this is going to happen for me?
Yeah, I think kind of that draft day was just exciting. Had a lot of buddies go on that draft too, so it was kind of just an exciting day for all of us. And then obviously growing up in Lethbridge, watching the Hurricanes, kind of grew up wanting to play in the WHL no matter what. So we're just so thankful to get drafted, and then kind of had to go to camp, see what it was like there, and then ultimately decided to sign there, and it's worked out awesome so far.
So Terik, you mentioned always want to play in the dub, and I mean, as a kid in BC who grew up in a small town, I mean, with a BCHL team, not a WHL team, those guys are kind of your heroes when you're a kid. Like you go to some of the community events, you go to some of the games, and you're just stoked. You're going there with all your buddies. Is that kind of how you got into it, or was it something to do with parents or family? Like, how did you really get into the sport?
Yeah, it's definitely kind of a mix of both for me. I think my dad played at Canisius in the States there. So he obviously played hockey. So kind of got me into that at a young age. And then we had season tickets for the Hurricanes. So would always be at the games. I just kind of loved the game as a kid. So yeah, I guess a little bit of mix of both.
Do you have an all-time favorite Lethbridge Hurricane for us?
I would say Tyler Wallen for sure.
Sweet, sweet. All right. Yeah, he was a pretty skilled player. Yeah.
Yeah,
Nice.
he was a fun one to watch.
So Tarek, that Edge School team you were on last year, like obviously you and I think it was Noah Davis, your goaltender, were both on the CSSHL first team All Star. You guys obviously had a huge playoff. You yourself had a absolutely unreal Circle K tournament, had 13 points in 6 games. Like, how fondly do you like reflect upon that group of players and that experience playing and obviously winning the championship that year?
Yeah, I think there was kind of a core group of us that had been there for kind of 4 years. So there was a few guys that have kind of grew super close to that way, and then kind of added new pieces, I guess, every year to our group, I would say. So I mean, those guys are like kind of family to me. So it was awesome to obviously win the championship with them that year. And I mean, we had successful events. Other Circle K, a little bit of a disappointment there. Would have loved to win that one, but yeah, obviously winning the championship with some of those guys was a great feeling.
I mean, I just kind of want to draw on your experience this year a little bit. I've been keeping an eye on your stats throughout the season, and once we found out we were getting you, I was pretty stoked. But you have a lot of really offensively talented players on your team. Like Riley Height's going to become a household name pretty soon here. And I mean, we're paying attention to him, but is there a guy on your roster that you think doesn't necessarily get enough attention, but he's just incredibly skilled? Any guys that you think of off the top of your head like that?
Yeah, I guess the first two I guess I would come to my mind would be like Zach Funk. I don't know, got I think what like 7 hat tricks this year or something like that. It's just ridiculous. And then another guy like Andre Becker too. He had an unreal World Juniors there for his country, and I mean I got to play with those two guys for pretty much the majority of the year. So those are two special players.
So you said it already, like we'd mentioned height before we went on. Tarek, you and I were talking about Cohen Zemer and Riley Height, and obviously you mentioned Zach Funk, who's almost a goal per game in the dub through 52 games, which is pretty insane to begin with. Like you come into this team as a rookie this year, and you're looking around, you see all these super skilled players, you see some NHL draft picks. Where did you think you were gonna fall into place on this Prince George team? Because like you've been a top six forward, you've been on the first power play, and you've been one of the most important players on the team. But coming in, what were your expectations of being a Prince George Cougar and being a WHLer?
Yeah, I mean, coming into the year, I didn't really know what to expect too much, and kind of got a little taste for what the league's like last year. But then, I mean, I didn't really know what our team was gonna completely look like coming into camp. But yeah, I was kind of expecting to kind of have to earn my ice time and come into the season, just work really hard for every opportunity that I got. And I mean, I was grateful to kind of get those opportunities early on and then just kind of ran with it.
Earning that ice time. I'd say ice time earned, man. Like you're killing it this year. And I mean, being your age and being a guy who grew up watching junior hockey, when you see draft rankings, how do you feel? What's that reaction like?
Yeah, obviously you see a ton of them and they're all different. They all have their own takes, I guess. But I mean, just cool to see your name kind of be mentioned in those, regardless of where it is. I mean, kind of those rankings aren't the ones that really matter. It's kind of the ones that the teams have for themselves. So kind of look at those and I guess take them with a grain of salt and just the excitement of having your name on there is just cool enough.
Yeah, I think you answered that question pretty perfectly. Like that's exactly what scouts, what fans want to hear. Like that's a pretty heart and soul answer there. But Sportsnet just released a draft ranking today, and I'm just gonna read out their description of you. He's always around the puck and is a threat from the tops of the circles down because of a sneaky release and uncanny accuracy. How do you feel about that description? And is there something about your game that you feel might not get noticed as much?
Yeah, I would say that's pretty accurate. I mean, I like to get down kind of low in the zone, kind of find space to get open for my teammates. So that's a pretty accurate one. I think maybe some of my game that I guess gets overlooked maybe a little bit would be my playmaking ability. I think I move the puck pretty well just with my hockey IQ. So I think I can be just as much of a playmaker as I am a finisher. So
So when you say that, Terik, a lot of really good NHL right wingers pop into my mind immediately. But if you had to, do your own player comparable to an NHLer, or even if not a comparable strictly, somebody that you look at and you want to model your game off of, is there any NHLers that come to mind for you?
yeah, I kind of that's a tough question. There's a lot of different things about different guys that I think my game kind of reflects to, but I think a guy like a TJ Oshie is kind of how I look at it, a little similar in many ways, kind of with our hockey IQ and just the way we play the game, I think is pretty similar. So try and take stuff from him.
Good answer. That's awesome. Like I honestly can't say I've heard of many guys say they want to model the game after Oshie, and I think they're missing out. That's a killer answer. I like that because he's the kind of guy that coaches dream of. Like throughout his career, he is just aside from the skill, he is a put on the work boots and get the job done kind of guy. Like you want a TJ Oshie on your team.
So obviously Riley Heidt and Cohen Zemer both went through the process of being, on a lot of people's draft boards last year, and Heidt ends up in the second round, Zemer ends up in the third. So going into your NHL draft, how much are you, like talking to those guys and getting their advice and just getting the idea of what this is going to be like from them, and how important are they in terms of just, helping show you what the way forward is going to be?
Yeah, I think having those two guys just to kind of talk to a little bit about things, especially early on in the process when I didn't really know much about what was going on at all, was huge for me to kind of get that reassurance of knowing what to do, kind of what to expect a little bit. So those guys have helped me out so much with that. And like the prospects game, for example, being able to kind of talk to Riley about the different stuff that goes on at that event. So just having those guys to talk to, it's been a big help.
I mean, one thing I'm curious about, and I think some of our listeners might be as well. I think I just want you to tell me about Prince George. What's it like playing there? What's the organization like? Living there? Give me a quick rundown on her.
Yeah, I think PG sometimes doesn't always get the best rep, especially for our travel we have, which for a lot of people, a lot of people wouldn't be able to handle that. But I think with the organization, the players, the coaches, everything in the organization is just ran so well, and everyone's so awesome here it makes it all easy. And I was fortunate enough to get awesome billets here too, so very thankful for that. And then the city itself kind of reminds me a little bit of Lethbridge back home, pretty similar size, a lot of similarities there. So it kind of makes me feel a little bit like it's home for me.
So,
And
Terik,
just
you told me before we went on that you're a Calgary Flames fan. So you take a look at both draft boards and then where these picks are expected to go. Both the Calgary Flames' own first round draft pick and the one they got from the Vancouver Canucks are kind of around where a lot of the draft boards have you going. So being a lifelong Flames fan, how would it feel to throw on the Calgary Flames jersey in Vegas this summer? Like, describe how you think that would feel, and just if that's something that you've thought about.
Yeah, I mean that would be super cool. Like obviously growing up being a Flames fan, that would just be an awesome feeling too. But I mean, for me, I'm just going to be excited regardless of what team picks me, no matter what. But obviously Calgary would have a little extra special touch to it. But yeah, I'll just be grateful for if whatever team decides to select me if they choose to do so.
while we're on the Calgary topic, give me your all-time favorite flame and maybe a flame that could have been a role model as well on top of that.
Yeah, I think that's a kind of a tough one. I guess the ones that come to mind right away would be the Goudreau and Kachuk. Those two when they were Flames, those were the two big names that I kind of looked at. So yeah, I think that it'd be a tough choice for me to pick between those two.
So it's to a lot of people, me included, it was some negative news when the NHL announced this was going to be the last like kind of big event draft and that they were decentralizing it. But for you, Tarek, it's you get the prospect of being drafted at the Sphere in Vegas in this big, elaborate NHL event that they're going to put on this summer. And
Yeah, I mean, obviously Vegas, especially the Sphere, kind of that whole thing. It'll be super cool if I get that opportunity. So I'm just excited for the potential of that.
so
One
we've
thing I'm curious about, and just like with a guy your age and with so many talented guys coming up in your draft class, it's something I've always been super curious about because you hear about other former pros and what they know about the guys their age, the guys they'll be matching up against later on, and they played in all these tournaments against them growing up. Are there guys in your upcoming draft class that you're aware of that you like to watch, keep an eye on?
Yeah, I think growing up, you kind of always know who the big names are, I guess, in your kind of age group. So you know who guys are growing up, and then once you get to the Western League or junior hockey as a whole, you still follow those guys. You still see what how they're doing, and typically the guys that have always kind of been at the top, they tend a lot of them tend to stay there. So you kind of know a lot of the names and are familiar with them. So I've obviously been following and seen a lot of these guys over the past few years playing hockey.
So Tarek, so we've talked about your draft class, we've talked about Edge School, talked a little bit about the Prince George Cougars, but I want to go back to that because it's Prince George, it's the Portland Winterhawks, and it's the Everett Silvertips. That's the three big powers at the top of the Western Conference. So how confident are you in your group in Prince George and the ability you guys have to make a deep playoff run here? Obviously, a lot of talent and a lot of formidable opposition will come and go, but how confident are you in your group?
Yeah, I think we know here that we have a really good team, and we know we can go on a long run here. It's just a matter of putting all the pieces together and making sure we're ready to come playoff time. And we know they'll no matter who you kind of play in this league, any team can win any night. So you gotta come with your A game. So regardless of who we're playing, we know we have a chance every night if we play well. So
Anybody come to mind if I asked hardest opponent to play against this year, single player that you just, when they're on the ice and you're on the ice, you're like, oh, damn it. Like I don't want to have to defend this guy. I don't want to have to go up against this guy. Like anybody who's been especially a thorn in your side.
hmm, yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, there's a lot of good players in this league, and I think just the one that comes to mind would be a guy like Connor Geeky. I mean, it was kind of my first month in the league, and I was a kind of line matching up against him the one game when he was in Wenatchee. So yeah, he was a tough player to play against. I mean, super high NHL pick. He's a big skilled forward. So it's hard to compete with size and skill.
Yeah, I mean the guy is built too. Like it's not just size. Like he's not lanky by any means. Like elite prospects and everyone already has him weighing at about 200 pounds. And yeah, I feel like with a bunch of 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds in that league, I feel like sometimes it could be like a man against boys. I mean, when you're coming in fresh, like you come into the dub as a 17-year-old, what is it like matching up against someone that size? Like, what do you have to do to push against them more, compete against them more? I always wondered about that with development in junior hockey.
Yeah, I think she's gonna take a lot of things as learning experiences in this league. You get a lot of older guys, you get the younger guys, so it's a good mix of players and different type of players. But playing against a big guy like that, you just gotta compete a little extra hard, kind of get into battles a little more, and just try and might not be able to outmuscle him, but just kind of think of ways to try and poke pucks off his stick or just little things like that to try and win puck battles.
And I mean, since we're on junior hockey right now, it's a big year for you. You're doing great. You're filling the net and you're running up these rankings. But about your game, is there anything you want to add to it? Something you feel like is an area you want to critically improve on?
Yeah, I think for a lot of people, I mean, skating's something that can always get better no matter who you are. So, I mean, that's definitely something that I've been working on and kind of something I want to continue to get better at is that'll definitely help me succeed at the next level and in the coming years here. So skating for sure.
So we talked about being at Edge School and this year being your rookie year in Prince George. What's the thing in the jump to the WHL that's been the biggest adjustment for you coming from this CSSHL and of course now making the significant jump to the dub? Is it the travel? Is it the opposition? Is it a combination of everything?
Yeah, I guess a little bit of everything is kind of just you kind of growing up playing hockey every year, you kind of move up. It's bigger, better players, so that's definitely a noticeable thing this year. And then I guess the travel and PG too is something that not everybody has to go through, but for me personally, it's definitely been a little bit different and just something you kind of got to get used to.
One last note on PG, like I briefly touched on it earlier. A lot of community events become a big thing in junior hockey. Do you have a highlight from this season so far of maybe something you and your teammates have done in the community that might have meant something to you?
Yeah, I think for me, I'm a school kid still, so I'm still grinding away in high school. But some of the older guys they've kind of gone out to the schools and done a little bit of floor hockey or went to classes and just kind of hang out with the younger kids. So I think that's something that's super cool for me because growing up watching the Hurricanes, kind of always cool to talk to those guys. And so for those guys to be doing that, I'm sure it makes a lot of kids' days. So
So you went to Lethbridge once so far this season with Prince George. It was back in late November. How cool was that getting to go and play against, by every indication, just your hometown team and the team that you grew up and that got you into the sport and all of a sudden you're there with another team's jersey on. Like was that a surreal experience or was that something that was a highlight of the season?
yeah, it was definitely something super cool. I mean, growing up watching them, it's cool to play against that team. So, I mean, I'm sure next year will be even cooler to play in Lethbridge and not just Prince George. So, I'm super excited for that, especially to get play in front of my family and friends back home. But yeah, it was an awesome experience to play against the Hurricanes.
Yeah, I mean, I can only imagine just playing in your hometown must be pretty surreal. I You always hear of guys, whether it's at the pro level, the junior level, they get that experience. Is it the kind of thing where you go back and all of your buddies from back home are calling you up, dialing it in so they can come see you play, or is it more undercover? Like, tell me a little bit about what that experience is like from a friends and family standpoint.
Yeah, I guess I haven't got that full experience yet, but I'm sure next year I'm sure I'll have quite a few buddies that'll come out and watch and support me. So I'm excited for that. It should be a great experience to see all my family and friends and play in front of them there.
So Terik, you still have a lot of regular season left to go, but the playoff picture in the WHL is starting to take shape. So, is there a particular goal you want to accomplish either for yourself or for your team as this season goes on and as we move into the postseason?
Yeah, I think obviously the main goal is to win a championship this year. So obviously that's our team's goal, and my goal personally is to help our team win a championship.
Well, and Prince George is in the position to obviously compete for that, and that's got to be a super exciting team to be on and situation to be in, and obviously you come to the Cougars as a rookie. How much either how much credit do you give the team, or is there anybody in particular you want to shout out for helping you make the adjustment, either at the beginning of the season or as the season's gone on to the Prince George Cougars, and anything in particular that has helped you this season?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a combination of everything. The coaches have been great to start. That's the first thing, is having the coaches' trust, which has been awesome, and then having great teammates around me is just a another great thing to add to the list. And then billets, fortunate enough for that to have amazing billets too. So kind of the whole organization as a whole is, I've been very fortunate and very lucky to have that. So that's helped me so much this year.
All right, I've got one more for you, Tarek, before we let you go. And it's a little bit off the board, but it's nothing too crazy. I just want to ask because, junior hockey can be such a special thing. Like you got this bond with your teammates and the community, and you're going on all these road trips to go to all these games. I just want to know, is there a story, like one moment so far this season that jumps out to you that puts a smile on your face, whether it's just a meal with your buddies, something pregame, one road trip that was just full of laughs. I just want you to give me your highlight of junior hockey so far to this point.
Ooh, that's a tough one. I mean, there's a lot of things that I've enjoyed so much about the year, and I guess spending time with teammates, that's kind of the biggest thing. You just enjoy the time away from the rink with those guys. But I think for me, definitely the highlight of the year so far, I would say, would be scoring that teddy bear toss goal. I think for me, that was just so cool. I mean, obviously, again, growing up in Lethbridge, you see those games and you see that kind of that cool thing where all the teddy bears get thrown on the ice, and you just kind of think about, oh, that would be awesome to score that goal. And I guess to be the guy this year to score that goal, that was a pretty cool moment.
Love to hear it, man. It's not a moment you're gonna forget.
I'll remember that one for a while.
All right, Tarek. Well, James and I will be watching. We'll be talking about you come draft time, and obviously, good luck rest of the season with the Prince George Cougars. Good luck into the playoffs with the Cougars, and good luck come draft time in Vegas. Hopefully, we see your name called by the time day one's over in that first round.
Sweet. Thank you guys.
Thanks, man.
Cheers, buddy. Thanks again. Well, I just want to thank Tarek so much for hopping on with us. You can tell he is quite the kid, and he's going to be a consummate professional. He already has that air of professionalism about him, and yeah, from the bottom of my heart, I just want to thank him so much for hopping on, and I wish him all the best going forward with the rest of the season, the upcoming draft, and what we hope will be a lengthy professional career. He's got the talent to do it. Seems like he's got the drive to do it. Let's see it all play out.
By the way, I know you mentioned that it was a great answer. I love the "I want to be TJ Oshie" answer when we asked about who he's
Oh,
game off of. That's a
oh.
that is an amazing NHLer. That is somebody who has been such an important player of every team he's been on. Huge part of Washington's 2018 Stanley Cup run, and somebody that always flew a little bit under the radar. He's probably one of the more underrated players of the 2010s decade. And if Terik keeps trying to emulate that, he'll be working towards something great.
Well, and the other thing too, he's not just underrated, he is so well respected at the NHL level. Like you talk to players, you hear from players in media that know him, and they just gush about how great of a guy he is. So, I mean, Emulate him in more ways than one. We loved that answer. That was probably the best one he could have given in my eyes.
Yeah, that was sweet, especially, like right winger who is very quickly being known for his goal scoring, but also has got that playmaking edge and that, that great on the power play, right? Like he's checked a lot of boxes so far in his young WHL career. Um, James and I wanted to wrap up quickly, just going over our NHL award ballots so far. There's a couple things that I've wanted to do for a little while. I want us both to also, James, pretty soon. So keep it in your mind. Best on best tournament 2025. Everybody else is getting their projected roster out, and we're the international hockey podcast at times, and we haven't done anything yet. So let's maybe for next episode we'll get the four nations who are competing in that tournament. We'll each throw a best on best roster together to go up on the Instagram and everything. Speaking of social media, before we go to our final topic of the day, YouTube Music has introduced podcasts, which means that the audio of the Great Canadian Hockey Podcast, as of right now, everything is available on YouTube. Everything from before is available on YouTube. It's available on the YouTube channel Canada Owns Hockey. That's the one that I've been running for years now. And it seemed like a very logical place to put the podcast up. James and I will have the regular episodes on Spotify, Apple, Google, and now YouTube as well. But to wrap up the episode, we had a question a little while ago that asked for our award winners and our whole playoff bracket, and we just didn't have the time to commit to that big of a question. But we are going to go through and do our awards winners today. James, I'll start with you, and I will start with the Norris Trophy. Who do you have at the top of your Norris Trophy ballot right now?
Well, Aiden, this is a hard one because bias aside, this is probably the tightest race I've seen in the past few years. Probably. For me, I want to say Cale Makar. For you, I already know you're going to say Quinn Hughes. But right in there, right in the thick of it, could be one, could be two, could be three, is Noah Dobson. The New York Islanders' right shot defenseman is just ripping it this year. Offensively, defensively, he's an absolute menace out there. He's got over 50 assists, I believe. He is playing in all situations. Huge workload every night. And I believe this is all happening while the Islanders are facing some injuries on the blue line throughout the year. They've seen some missed time from Adam Pelech, from Ryan Pollock. And so he's been relied on just that much more. And it just shows that you put yourself in the right situation, you keep working that hard, these results will come. So I think if Noah Dobson isn't on the Norris ballot by the end of the year, I will be shocked. He is absolutely elite, and he's cementing himself as a true number 1D.
Well, and you said bias aside, mine's Makar, yours is Hughes. Man, Noah Dobson has been one of my favorite hockey players basically since he was in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League. So he's one of my favorite NHLers, period. So my bias might even be more inclined to say Noah Dobson than it is Quinn Hughes. Right now, I do think I have Quinn Hughes at number one. And part of that is, just watching him game in, game out, as big of a fan of both Dobson and Makar as I am. You might have my three favorite defensemen in the NHL in the Norris Trophy finalists this year in Makar, Hughes, and Dobson. Right now, Hughes is probably my one, Dobson's probably my two, Makar is probably my three. But any variation of that could end the season, and I wouldn't be surprised. And whoever wins it is really going to deserve it because all three of those players have been fantastic.
Definitely, man. And do you want to go to the Vezina next? Do you want to kind of stay at that end of the ice?
Sure. Yeah, let's do it. I'll let you start with the last one. Right now, number one for the Vezina Trophy for me, Connor Hellebuck is having an amazing season for the Winnipeg Jets. Winnipeg has, there's been times where it's looked like the Jets were going to win the Stanley Cup and be the top team in the league. And then there's been times where Winnipeg has looked like a team that's barely going to squeak into the playoffs. But the one thing that's been the constant is how good Connor Hellebuck's been. The guy's never had an NHL season where he's had worse than a 907 save percentage or worse than a 2.9 goals against average, 9.7 goals against average, make that. And this might be the best he's ever been. He is making so many saves that, you just don't expect any goaltender to be able to make. He's so steady in between the pipes. He inspires confidence in that Jets blue line, and he's a huge reason why Winnipeg is doing as well as they are. They don't have a single player, James, at point per game or above. Like Josh Morrissey's not having the same season he was. Kyle Connor got hurt. To me, honestly, Connor Hellebuck might be on my Hart Trophy ballot. That's how good I think this guy's been. Number 2 for me is Thatcher Demko of the Vancouver Canucks again. Much like Quinn Hughes, he's somebody that I've been watching game in, game out, and much like Hellebuck, he's making some saves where you just have to shake your head because it's so incredible to watch him do that. And he deserves a Vezina nomination. I would still say Hellebuck's my 1, but Demko's clearly my 2. What do you have?
Exact same as you, damn near word for word, signed, sealed, delivered. Move on to the next one.
Okay. Next up, then let's talk Hart Trophy. Like I said, I think Connor Hellebuck is on my ballot. It's kind of my number 3 right now is between Hellebuck and Connor McDavid. But top 2, Nathan MacKinnon and Nikita Kucherov have both had unbelievable seasons, respectively. And Kucherov right now is leading the league in points. He's got 34 goals and 90 points in 53 games as of the time of this recording. Braden Point is having a good season as well. Victor Hedman has kind of returned to form a little bit. And Brandon Hagel is having himself an amazing season. But Nikita Kucherov is the lifeblood of that Tampa Bay Lightning team, especially in the absence to Sergachev, the absence to Vasilevsky for so much of this season. James, I think I have to lean Kucherov's way right now, and I'm leaving the door open for you to represent your boy McKinnon. But Nikita's just been on another level, and this is a guy who had a 128-point season not too long ago, and the fact that he's playing the best hockey of his career now, and it wasn't even that, is something to behold.
Okay, I mean, I feel like if I start Nathan MacKinnon gushing, which I really want to, I'm just going to word for word repeat things that I've said probably about 8 times this season. So I'm going to say, listen back. If you haven't listened already, take those words and repeat them and understand that in my eyes, Nathan MacKinnon is the one true king of the NHL right now. At this current moment in time, he is. And I want to draw attention to one highlight. A highlight from, I believe that would be Tuesday night in Colorado's, I believe, 6-3 win against the Capitals. Nathan MacKinnon comes off the wall, pass to the slot to a freshly off injured, well, not freshly, but recently off injured reserve Arturi Lehkonen, who had a killer game. Just quick tap pass to Mikko Rantanen, one-timer in the net. And that's just an example of how MacKinnon is seeing the ice this year. When it's not a complete highlight reel solo rush and breaking ankles, he's seeing the ice seemingly better than he ever has. He's seeing plays a couple steps ahead. And that's something that was always a part of his game, but it seems to be more magnified this season. So, I mean, you touched on what Kucherov's supporting cast is like. We know damn well what Colorado's is. Yes, there's no Landeskog, but Mikko Rantanen, Cale Makar, Arturi Lehkonen, when healthy, Valdin Chushkin, Devon Taves. He has no shortage of help. That's true. But he's running away with it in my eyes.
Yeah, again, much like the Norris, to me, it's more of a 2-horse race than the Norris is, but I think either one of MacKinnon or Kucherov could win it, and I definitely would not disagree. If you ask me who I want to win it, I'm probably saying Nathan MacKinnon. He doesn't have any really personal silverware aside from his Calder Trophy.
Lady Bing.
And the Lady Bing, okay. But he's like, I think the fact that he is one of the best hockey players on the planet and has been for a while now deserves a Hart Trophy under his belt, and I really do hope that he does win it. Lastly, this is probably the most difficult one for one very specific reason: the Calder Trophy race. Connor Bedard's broken jaw is the complicating factor, but Bedard is back now. He's playing, and for me, he is still my pick to win the Calder. However, though, there's a contender. There is a close number 2. Defenseman Brock Faber from the Minnesota Wild has had an unbelievably good season and has worked his way right into that conversation. James, I'm still going one Bedard, two Faber, especially with how imminent Bedard's return is. But you can make a serious case for Brock Faber too. What do you got?
I mean, I wholeheartedly agree with you that I think Brock Faber's number one right now. I mean, unless Bedard comes back and starts ripping it again, gets enough games in, I think at the pace Brock Faber's at, he's right there. So I'm going to focus on this a little bit differently. And anyone who looks at NHL award voting sees the down ballot stuff. And down ballots are where things get a little bit interesting. You see where guys have voted someone fourth or fifth, and they get a little bit of consideration. So I think this year we're going to get some fifth place votes for Daniil Voronkov
Interesting.
in Columbus. This is a guy who, when he came to the NHL this year, he couldn't speak English. At one point, he got homesick and wanted to go back to Russia. He didn't feel comfortable, and he formed a bit of a bond with Yegor Chinnikov. They were playing on a line together at one point. I believe there's another Russian on that line.
Alexei Toropchenko.
No, that's St. Louis,
Is
isn't it?
is Toropchenko not Columbus? Am I?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's St. Louis.
Is St. Louis? Who is it?
But yeah, so
Kirill Marchenko. Sorry, another
yeah,
Kirill
Kirill
Marchenko.
Marchenko. That's right.
That's the
Yeah,
name.
so he's formed a bond with a couple guys who were from the same country as him. And I swear, every other game, it seems like he's getting on the score sheet. And you go look at the scores. I don't know about how you do it, but I go on the score app and I just check the scores every night for every game that I haven't watched. And lately, as I've been pretty busy, that's been quite a few. So I check the scores and Daniil Voronkov assist. Oh, Voronkov goal. Oh, he scored again. Oh, who is this guy? Why am I seeing his name all the time? And it just keeps happening. And I think for a young guy without much of a reputation, having your name stick around is a pretty big benefit. That shows you're doing something right. So I want to give props to him, a little bit of recognition. And yes, down ballot. That's not a winner, but I think you really covered the two potential winners already.
Yeah, I think if we're talking dark horse, we already talked about Marco Rossi earlier on in this podcast, but I think Connor Zary of the Calgary Flames deserves a shout. 12 goals, 26 points in 43 games is at the time of this recording. And, like again, being here and being in Alberta, I've watched more Flames hockey than I did before. And even, I've been out to two Flames games this season at the Scotiabank Saddledome. And in both, he has looked very, very good. Like he's controlling the play well. He's confident on the puck. He's confident in transition. And he's effective every time he's on the ice. I think he's been awesome. When Calgary picked this guy at 24, I thought it was a steal. I was a huge fan of him coming out of the draft just because, he'd been playing in the Western Hockey League with the Kamloops Blazers. So I obviously had a lot of exposure to him. And, in 2020, I had him easily in the top 15 and he dropped all the way to 24. And, it's good to see that he's worked out as his talent level in junior showed. And yeah, I think that's going to do it for my Calder Trophy piece, James. Anything else you want to say before we wrap? It's been an awesome episode with Terik joining us and getting another one off here in February while you're working away.
I think that's all I've got, Aiden. I'm happy to get on a regular episode. It feels nice to check that off the list.
Thanks for taking the time, James. And again, huge thank you to Terik for joining us. That was a ton of fun.
Well, we hope you guys enjoyed this one as much as we did. Without further ado, let's roll that outro. Thanks, guys.